Welcome, welcome, greetings and salutations. Come on in, welcome, welcome everyone. Peace and love, joy and prosperity. It is another edition of Revolutionary Hoodoo, New Orleans Voodoo Secrets and Recipes. You are now listening live and always in archive at your leisure and convenience to the Divine Prince, Pan African spiritualist, practitioner, author, and advisor, Elagoon Oloye Hoodoo Obeya Boku. Broadcasting live from this beautiful, historic, legendary, enchanted city of New Orleans, Louisiana. All things spiritual, mystical, metaphysical, cosmic, evolutionary, revolutionary, healing, and holistic from a Pan African hoodoo world spiritualist perspective. Understanding that all is truly and indeed a blessing if you can just see beyond the veils, for it is all just an illusion and a test in one of the greatest divine mysteries of this life cycle. We are indeed grateful, always grateful, for another white day, the day in which we honor and acknowledge our beloved ancestors, our Golade, our Egungun, certainly all those in Genet who assist us in moving forward as individuals, as family, as lineage, as bloodline, and certainly as humans in humanity. So we're always thankful and grateful and honor our ancestors and all that we set our hands to do. I'm also acknowledging that spirit that governs our head with great clarity on this particular white ritual day. And indeed, without the power of our own heads, the power of our own consciousness, the power of our own God itself, that we are indeed doing ourselves a disservice and are not living up to, acting up to the fullness of our power and our potential. I invite you to come in and join me. You certainly can join me with your cam and your microphone and become a part of this ongoing conversation about voodoo. What is voodoo? What does voodoo look like to you? And how certainly does voodoo manifest in your world, in your reality? And how do we meet together at the center of the triangle, the triad that is worldwide voodoo? Certainly, we acknowledge our ancestors and those who laid the foundation of roots voodoo in West Africa, Benin, Togo, Ile Ife, Ghana, Nigeria, Cameroon, Ivory Coast, Cote d'Ivoire, Congo. Certainly, we honor and acknowledge that which the ancestors carried with them in their bosom, and sometimes hid away in their hair and in their clothing, the seeds, the grains, the dirt, the elements that were able to reconstitute and rebuild voodoo here in the so-called New World, North, Central, and South America, and certainly Haiti and Louisiana for giving prominence and holding together our ancestors in a tradition, this ethno-cultural tradition that is a part of our organic DNA coding, but also is so deeply ingrained and embedded in our culture and our ethno lifestyles regionally and globally that sometimes we need a wake up call or a reminder of who we are and indeed what we're capable of doing. We're up against a lot, Queen Mother Toni. in this day and age, in this season. And so for me, and for many others, we have only but the Most High, only but the ancestors, only but the greatest powers of the universe to assist us in motivating and preparing and certainly fighting and going to war, where the fight in the war indeed happens, which is at the crossroads. How are you doing today?
Peace and blessings to everyone. I am not doing too well because spirits would not let me rest all night and all today. My mind has been everywhere with this Super Bowl in New Orleans. I don't know if anybody else feeling it, but my spidey senses just won't stop. My hair is crawling and standing up on arms. And I really could care less about the Super Bowl, but spirit just won't let it rest.
Oh yeah, and I live in that unique neighborhood we know as Treme, historic Treme, where it's all happening, where it all goes down in Treme. But I'm also at the crossroads, the intersection of French Quarter, Treme, or the neighborhoods, if you will. That I-10 highway, which right now is either shut down, blocked, or closed due to some police activity, as it was described earlier today on the news, or due to some other EMS or emergency of some sort, being the main corridor going into the University Hospital district. So I'm hearing uh, ambulance and fire trucks and police sirens like I usually do not hear at all. There was some major event that took place, I know, on I-10 today, and it was shut down for some time. I didn't have time to investigate, but I was able to capture the alert in my phone suggesting some sort of police activity. We know that the orange clown is coming to town. Um, you never know when, you never know where, you never know how, and we don't know what delegate, what team is also accompanying him as he tries to, prove on the one hand that New Orleans is indeed safe enough. If it's safe enough for the Super Bowl, it's certainly safe enough for the Orange Man, which I guess to some degree affects our overall sense of safety and security for the tourists. But at the same time, that Spidey sense, people being offended, upset, angry, um, activated, reactivated, feeling a sense of disenfranchisement from the system. And this fuels the would-be bad actors to do bad things. And it can be a trigger for a certain, uh, manifestation of mental health. All these different triggers and stimuli going on at once. But I feel you. There's certainly, you know, that sense of apprehension and spidey tingling sense, in the air. I haven't, in all honesty, sought to do any reading on it or divination on it, though I might do that tonight and going into tomorrow. Um, my assistant is here. My wild man is here. Joshua and Island Tanner, my first priest is here, so he's going to help me to get some things done later on tonight and going in tomorrow as it relates to that specifically. So it's not you. You're not by yourself. You're not alone in that sense of apprehension. And there's, you don't want to alarm people. You don't want to add fuel to the fire for people's already overfed sense of anxiety about what's, happening in today's society, locally, regionally, nationally, globally. It's just every peg on the crazy, ladder has been struck in the last 2 weeks, and certainly the last 3 or 4 days, are really no different. I want to share with my audience. Greetings, Daniel Neal. Thank you so much for being a blessing. Uh, Daniel Neal also feels it, senses it, is aware. Greetings, beloved co-host and co-creator and practitioner of NONVD New Orleans National Voodoo Day. You're certainly welcome to stay and chat if you will, but you're also always invited to join us here on screen as a host and co-host with us tonight. But whatever you're able to do at your convenience and your leisure, but we're certainly grateful for your being here. And before I get too ahead of myself, I want to remind you, please, the National New Orleans Voodoo Day, April 5th and 6th, New Orleans, Louisiana. Visit our website at www.voodooday.org. That's VODOUDAY.org. There will be no Voodoo Day without the U. That's YOU. So we invite you locally, regionally, nationally, internationally to be a part of this great delegation of practitioners who and believers and witnesses and custodians of the tradition who will be here in New Orleans. This is indeed the Mecca of voodoo and black spirituality and tradition, if you will, in North America. But we will be bringing together the great power that is Ouida Benin, the president of Ouida Benin, a beloved Baba Kakpo, who's over the governance of culture and tourism, if you will, for Benin, and the highest ranking Babalawo practitioner will also be present for National New Orleans Voodoo Day, as well as a powerful and beloved delegation from Haiti will also be present. And certainly with all that's going on in Mother Haiti, we must always be in constant prayer, ritual, sacrifice, and ceremony for Haiti, for the mother continent, and certainly for our own breath and blood here in the so-called Americas in this present day and time. I wanted to share today two articles that I came across, particularly that struck me in regards to something that I referenced on the very last episode about the education and re-education of what Aboriginal and Indigenous practices and traditions are, and what they look like, and what they sound like, and how we operate in them then and now, and certainly centering on specifically voodoo. And we know that I personally make a clear distinction between authentic demonstration of the practice and the tradition, but also I can operate in the realm of entertainment, Halloween, movies, TV, commercial, American Horror Story, many things that I've done in sort of humor, in entertainment, in pop cultural demonstration of the tradition. But I've sought in this space, in this sacred space that we co-create together here, and certainly in my house, in my temple space, to teach and educate and re-educate on what's authentic to the tradition. And listen, this isn't as liberal a time as we thought we were living in. I think we got a rude awakening in the last few months. Uh, we're not as liberal as we think we are. We're not as open to, the diversity of lifestyle and people, places, and things that are happening in the world. And that still includes, to a great degree, anything non referencing another religious triangle: Christianity, Judaism, and Islam, the three dominant world traditions, if you will, and often the most oppressive practices and traditions as it relates to how other people live, act, and maneuver. And so there's not only this, lack of education, this old world bastardization um, of voodoo and what voodoo is and what it looks like, but it's happening right now in real time from a diversity of sources, certainly from religious sectors who would want you to believe the most unthinkable, ungodly, devilish, wicked things about what this tradition and practice is, and would reinforce that from the pulpit, from the sacred houses, if you will. But there's also that educating and re-educating and miseducating that takes place from the dynamics of pop culture, whether it be the not necessarily the entertainment media demonstration, like American Horror Story or horror movies and film, but pieces that present themselves to be truthful, documentaries, news articles, certainly documents that many students might be writing and submitting at the university level. And when you have the time and the energy and the motivation to explore these documents, you realize that there's an active committee to the continued miseducation, demonization, bastardization of the practice and the tradition, uh, particularly if it cannot be appropriated. And sometimes appropriation looks like, synchronizing. Sometimes appropriation looks exactly like um, bastardization, if not demonization. And so there were two documents that I came across. Greetings, Don, beloved. I'm gonna bet you and let you in. Just give me a moment, okay? Um, Greetings and salutations to you and yours. One document I came across is called Bois Came On as a Curse. Bois Came On as a Curse. And I found this document while researching and looking for other credible documents and articles and sites that were referencing this great Bois Came On ceremony, voodoo ceremony that ultimately led to the Haitian uprising and to the Haitian Revolution. And so I came across this article, Bois Came On as a Curse by Sandy, and the last name is Be Like Boy, Laise, Blaze, perhaps, Sandy Blaze. And in her or his words, most references to the Bois Came On ceremony in music are positive ones, as the event led to the voodoo priest named Boukman that launched the slave revolts in August of 1791 that led to freedom and independence from France in 1804. It is used as a symbol of resistance. Roots music in the 1970s referred to the ceremony as a way of showing that they were resisting the Duvalier totalitarian regime like their ancestors resisted their oppressors almost 2 centuries earlier to escape enslavement, and a response to the government's subversion of the voodoo religion as a way to control people and its association with violence. The social and cultural movement resume also reappropriated voodoo elements as part of the traditional Haitian heritage and incorporated them in its music. Bois came on as a secret gathering of enslaved Africans born in Santo Domingo or Africa. It's also used in music as a symbol of unity of the Haitian people as a whole and throughout the centuries, liking contemporary times to the 18th century and the heroes of the Haitian Revolution, but also to other Caribbean islands in Africa. Voodoo and Roman Catholicism, because of its colonized past and the legacy of French colonization, Voodoo as the traditional religion of the West Africans who were brought to Santo Domingo on slave ships, and Catholicism as the religion of the colonizers have coexisted in Haiti for a long time to form what anthropologists call religious syncretism. Elizabeth McAllister writes that even though, in theory, the received way of thinking about Voodoo and Catholicism is to imagine them as a pair of binary opposites, in practice, it may be more helpful to imagine these two accompanying either end of the continuum. And that's Elizabeth McAllister, Madonna of 115th Street Revisited, Voodoo and Haitian Catholicism in the Age of Transnationalism. Division 2, Faculty Publications, Paper 16, 1998, page 137. Now, what's interesting about this academic footprint is its overt focus in, again, on Haiti without, hardly a mention at all of Africa, Benin, Togo, Ouida, the roots, the parental, grandparental roots, if you will, of the practice and this tradition. And then a alert for a news article came across my phone today from the Daily Star. And I believe the Daily Star is a UK, London-based. Um, I'm going to use newspaper loosely. I don't know if it's a gossip rag. Is it like the Inquirer? I'm not quite sure of that, but it's Daily Star, and it's titled "Voodoo" with four O's, now protected religious belief to stop job discrimination against believers. Let me say that again. The title of this article is "Voodoo" with four O's, now protected religious belief to stop job discrimination against believers. And on the surface, it sounds like, okay, this might be fun. This might be interesting. Um, this could be a positive thing, a positive transaction, uh, a transition, if you will, in societal acceptance of voodoo, whether it's four O's or uh, or with the French spelling with the U's. But as we've discussed on previous episodes, the politicizing and misrepresentation of the value of the spelling beyond reason, beyond regional language, has often been used as a propaganda tool to continue to misdirect, misinform, miseducate about what voodoo is. And so we say, oh well, it's got four O's and it's not real voodoo. It's not legitimate. It doesn't have its root connection to the mother, which we understand now is totally false and indeed not true. So beyond that initial positive response, there's the first, okay, where are they going with this? And then the article proceeds by Steve Hughes, news by Steve Hughes, February 6, 2025, again titled Voodoo Now Protected Religious Belief to Stop Job Discrimination Against Believers. An employment judge has ruled Voodoo a religion found mainly in the Caribbean based on traditional African practices involving magic and communication is to be protected. Voodoo is a protected religious belief, meaning its believers cannot be discriminated against, a judge has now ruled. The religion has clear teachings, in quotation marks, and tries to explain mankind's place in the universe by its concepts of spirit and divinity and employment tribal rules. And employment tribal rules. As a result, it is more than just an opinion, again in quotation marks, and is a protected belief under workplace equality laws. Now, certainly the first, you know, the second issue I have with this article is its reference to being found mainly in the Caribbean based on traditional African practices, which is relatively true that it is found in the Caribbean. It is found in North, Central, and South America. It is found in certainly Africa, but it's also found in Europe and in Asia. But if we're being historic, if we're being anthropological, certainly we mentioned the mother continent. We mentioned, the Americas, and certainly we mentioned Haiti, but there's no mention whatsoever in this article. It also involves magic and communication. Magic and communication. Magic is a word we would use in Hollywood. Magic is a word that we would have used on American Horror Story as a concept. Magic is not a word that we use in authentic demonstration of ATR, Aboriginal African traditional religious systems. Magic is a Eurocentric Western English word and concept. Even when we suggest Heka, the Kemetic or ancient Egyptian word, we're taught that Heka means magic. But when we say magic, it invokes, David Lane, uh, it invokes entertainment, it invokes creative license. It does not speak to the ethno-cultural practice and demonstration of Aboriginal indigenous cultures and societies, and particularly that of Voodoo. Clear teachings. What does that mean in quotation marks without elaborating on what those clear teachings are? And writing an article that, does not speak to or speak with the voice of someone operating with clear teachings about this practice. So in the author's words, as a result, it is more than just an opinion and is a protected belief now in the UK, which, I applaud. We had our Halitha legal case here in the US, in Florida, before the Supreme Court that provided protections for ATR as it relates to animal sacrifice. And so I applaud, the government legalizing what is natural and innate and inherent to us and our communities. But again, to present it as a new law with all the miseducation, the mistellings attached to it in this article, just further creates, the next generation of miseducated people who are, as we talked about last episode, type in VOODOO, in the search bar looking for, authentic explanations and definitions of what voodoo is, and not understanding the ethnocultural, regional nuances that can affect the response that you get from AI or from your search engines. The article goes on to say voodoo is a religion found mainly in the Caribbean, but again, we know that's not true. Um, no mention of Haiti, no mention of North, Central, or South America, outside of the Caribbean in the most general terms, um, and certainly no mention of Benin or Togo or West Africa in this article whatsoever. And goes on to say it's based on traditional African practices involving magic and communication with spirits and with dead people, and the use of pins stuck in dolls. Okay. So again, we can't shake the pin stuck in the doll phenomenon, which
Hollywood.
which is really more of a reference to uh, Eurocentric witchcraft, which may will have found its way into Louisiana voodoo, Mississippi Delta voodoo, hoodoo, because as with all things that we don't make and create and give birth to ourselves, we find a way to use it better to improve upon it. And the pins in the doll, mirrors to some people the statuary and the fetish pieces that you can find in the Congo with nails embedded in the body, you know, uh, smaller versions with smaller nails embedded in the body, miseducated to the I might see that and perceive that as some direct lineage association to voodoo dolls with pins. And let me be clear, there are practitioners who use voodoo dolls with pins. I have voodoo dolls with pins, but they are not voodoo, VODOU. And again, at best, they can be conjure, root working, can also might use Greekery. Uh, Not all Greekery are the same. Some Greekery certainly include pen and needle and sewing magic in the process, but these belong to world magic and traditions found in Aboriginal and indigenous practices and cultures throughout the world. Um, there's some knotting magic, some sewing magic, and again, we're using English, we're using Western linguistics, as opposed to calling things in the ethnocultural practice and tradition by the ethnocultural name, using the ethnocultural language, which is what distinguishes lineage based practice. And for those who have not reviewed the previous episode, maybe two episodes back, lineage is based not just in bloodline or heritage, where you were born, but also including where you practice, where you initiated, where you were exposed to the tradition, and that creates lineage. Um, Lukumi is specific to the lineage that is Cubano, Cuban, Cubana, and practice, from that culture, and certainly can now be found in the U.S., but that is where its roots can be found. Santeria can also be found in Cuba, Puerto Rico. Um, it certainly has its Yoruba, Igbo, Akan, Fon, Ewe elements embedded in the practice. It has now amalgamated and syncretized with Catholic imagery, symbolism, iconology within its practice. And certainly the Tahano or the indigenous people of the land, and those practices and traditions, and certainly any European, Eurocentric magic that we would have absorbed would also be found in that practice. You look at Brazil and you see Candomblé, you on the surface, first and foremost, see a very syncretized, systematic Yoruba demonstration. But then they have voodoo in Brazil, not unlike Haiti, Jamaica, Trinidad, Tobago, Louisiana, and they call it voodoo. And it, again, is a amalgamation, a gumbo pot of practices and traditions that our ancestors would have carried with them, but also would have syncretized and amalgamated um, into their regular practice. So back to this article, the ruling by employment judge Kate Edmonds came in the case of a council worker who unsuccessfully sued Wausau Metropolitan Bureau Council for racial and religious harassment after a voodoo comment was made by a colleague. We previously reported, we meaning uh, the Daily Star. The Daily Star previously reported how a bloke was godsmacked after stumbling upon a chilling find in the woods. The man took to Reddit to share pictures of what appeared to be a voodoo doll propped against a tree. I quote, I wanted to take him home, she said. No way, Jose, unquote. He wrote on the R Weird subreddit stream. R forward slash weird is a stream on the Reddit site, on the subreddit site. He added more details about his eerie discovery. Made a pit stop, and I quote, made a pit stop in the Rocky Mountains and took a walk about. Wasn't expecting to get cursed. He was covered with red wax. He had some damage. The one foot was also singed, seen fresh in that it hadn't been out there very long, unquote. So we're talking again about voodoo being reported in the UK by someone who claims to have been in the Rocky Mountains at the time when they found this, quote, VOODOO doll, and wasn't expecting to be cursed in his own words. So, again, the premise of the government seeking to protect um, voodoo or Aboriginal indigenous practices and traditions that might be classified as voodoo. The article itself is full of untruths, inaccuracies, misrepresentations, to again keep the untrained eye um, confused in their self training and self discovery and self initiation about wanting to learn and understand voodoo. And they're doing so by search and finding articles or books or documents or movies or film like this that don't make the clear distinction between what is voodoo. As we opened on Monday, what is voodoo? What do we call it? How do we spell it? How do we say it? And what does that speak of our collective, but more importantly, our individual and unique usage of the language, of the words? What does it say about what we know about the practice and the tradition? We talked about back in the Yahoo 360 days when people used to sit up and argue about Lukumi and Palo and Santeria and Isheshe and Nago all day long in these group chats about Pan-African spirituality and religion. And often it was over language, semantics, understanding, and sometimes the language being, pulled from popular books. Louisa Tesh, um, what's the name of her book? It escapes me right now. Maureen Gonzalez Whippler, Santeria Experience. Uh, that book goes all the way back to the 70s, that attempt to share in a colorful, artistic, creative way their experience with the practice and or tradition. But they're really not giving you any meat, any details about authentic practice, what things are called and why. how things are used in the way that they are used, and why they are subsequently utilized that way. And they do so to, one, protect the honor and integrity of their own initiations, where they have had and received legitimate initiations. They're not like a Mason, a Shriner, like a fraternity, a sorority. They're not seeking to violate their pact, their commitment to secrecy, if you will. And you can find some very good books, some very good authors um, that speak to these traditions, that write about these practices, but you cannot, navigate them the way you would a textbook, a book of study, if you will. There are documents that I have written, and documents that we use within the community, that are common knowledge, that are shared, that are part of, any initiation training, mentorship, but without the hands-on guidance of legitimate practicing people in the tradition. um, you're basically getting a book of recipes, or without, being taught how to bake a cake. You're getting a book of chemical equations, mathematical equations and formulas, without being taught chemistry, or having a real understanding of mathematics. So, the two-edged sword that is the superhighway of information, that is the World Wide Web, um, it's a two-edged sword. It does good, and it can do evil at the same time. It can give you information that can be quite helpful, quite beneficial, while at the same time promoting misinformation, replicating untruths, outright lies. And in this day of AI, you really have to be clear about what you're seeing, what you think you're seeing, what you think you're hearing, and certainly the words that are written. Author goes on to say, in dark magic lore, a voodoo doll is an effigy used to cast harmful spells on someone it represents. And for me, he gives away the truth of what he's talking about in the very words that he's using when he opens up with in dark magic. Well, you're not talking about voodoo, you're talking about dark magic, which are two very different things, very distinctly, mathematically uh, different things, in practice and in theory. So we, as a community of people who uh, appreciate these practices in these traditions, operate in these practices in these traditions, we must be self-aware. We must be self-educated. We must show ourselves approved. And even when we feel comfortable in finding a great author, a great mentor, a great teacher, leader, communicator who we believe can share and teach us things about ATR, Pan African spiritual and religious practices and traditions, um, even magical practices and traditions, witchcraft traditions, religious practices and traditions. We always must be self aware and self approved. Anytime we give over all of our belief in one person, one source, one temple, one church, um, you are sure to have fallen into error. Anything true is always true, though it may not always be evident. Anything that's true is true in any language. Anything that's true is true in mathematics, and it's often true in science. So do your homework, do your research, learn the language that's being used, and seek to decipher the motivation behind why a book author writes and says what they do, why a news author, a journalist, news journalist, writes or uses the wording and or captioning uh, in a presentation that they do. In TV, film, commercials, music videos, entertainment, there's certainly that creative license to create shock, awe, spook, horror, curiosity, sometimes, disgust and decrepity as the draw. Certainly, if we're talking about Halloween, that might be of interest to some people. Um, but again, when we're talking about the legitimate practice, and I'm going to contact this author myself because I have questions, and you might have questions too, as the motivation behind why this article was written and what was the goal, beyond making the announcement that the UK is now protecting voodoo. Is the usage of the spelling intentional because London speaks English, and so they don't necessarily use a U as opposed to Paris or France? Might it interject that U in the spelling? Was that conscious? Was that intentional? Thank you, Elder Reggie. Louisa Tesh's book is Jambalaya. I love Jambalaya, but back in my youthful days, I consider Jambalaya one of my Bibles. Lack spirituality and tradition, and indeed, she introduces you to many aspects of the global practice and tradition without always saying that's what it is. But again, when you're reading the words, am I using Spanish? Am I using Yoruba? Am I using Fon? Am I using Ewe? You get a deeper understanding of what any author or person who's seeking to represent the practice and tradition truly knows and understands by the words that are coming out of their mouth and how they use those words in the company of other people, whether they be initiated or uninitiated, whether they be exposed to the practice and the tradition, or new and learning and on a soul journey. But she does not teach you Europe culture. You can't fully understand Orisha and not understand Europe culture and tradition, which includes, their parables, their patakis, their stories, their legends, their mythology. Um, so even in our Orisha worship in the New World, which I, you know, faultly attribute to botanicas who set up in the community and want to sell you stuff, does not necessarily mean that the owners, operators, the customer service agents behind the register know anything about the practice and or tradition. There's a shop in the French Quarter, shop that I'm friendly with. Um, I'm not going to say the name of the shop, but I'm going to say they use voodoo imagery and symbolism to operate this shop. And so you go in there, and there's clearly tourist-like stuff in there, but there's also really authentic stuff in there. But if you don't know the difference, you don't know the difference. And often the really authentic stuff looks plain, um, used, um, aged, if you will, demonstrating its application and practice, or at least its creation to present application and practice. But then the stuff that's easier to reach, that's closer to the register, that's, down at eye level, is tourist stuff, you know, that's designed to attract the attention of the shopper who just wants to spend, $15, or the shopper who just wants something that says that they've been to New Orleans, or something that says voodoo, gives the voodoo vibes, in their opinion. that they can re-gift or take home, as a souvenir. And some of the more authentic stuff is hanging from the ceiling. For my qualified shoppers out there, you already know if it's attached to the ceiling and they need to climb a ladder or pull out a special utensil to access it, you already know it's of value. It has a price tag on it. It has a greater purpose. But the average quote unquote tourist doesn't see that stuff, doesn't recognize that stuff, doesn't understand what's happening up there. So it's easy in 2025, it's easy in modern times to be beguiled, to be misled, to be led astray as it relates to voodoo with the U, voodoo with four O's, Santeria, Lukumi, Palo, witchcraft, tarot card reading, psychics, all of these uh, areas of specialty can present a bit of a free for all in that they are, generally speaking, unregulated, except for how religions themselves created an environment of self regulation. So we hide, we tuck away, uh, we don't seek the community, we seek the library or Amazon books. All of that is by design. And again, it's created by religions, it's created by governments, it's created by parents and educators and families, all around the world that want to maintain the status quo, that want to maintain the religion of that household or that community or that region or that country, depending on where in the world you live. And so the great escape of the present modern era is often the internet. And so people seek exposure to and knowledge of and about voodoo, VODOU, or voodoo, VOODOO, by way of whatever we can digitally access. But understanding how to research, understanding how to look, knowing what it is that you are looking for, and understanding the ethno-cultural nuances from, I like to say, family to family, household to household. You might say village to village, tribe to tribe. Certainly, even within Nigeria, how things are done in Ocean Village don't carbon copy match how things are done in Ogun Village or Osogbo Village, or how things might be done in any various community in Ghana or Cameroon. There is that familiar family communal way of doing things. Even when we say church, um, church looks different from corner to corner, from address to address, from ethnicity to ethnicity, race to race, economic background. Church looked different, in uh, Eddie Long's prior world to uh, Pastor Fred, what's his name, in his view. You know, church looks different, in Peter Popoff's crystal ball, maybe versus the Catholic Church, down the block from you. And so you don't escape that diversity, that difference. And of course, I'm trying to be diplomatic. In the best case scenario, there's charlatans in religion. There's certainly charlatans in witchcraft. There's charlatan tarot readers. There's charlatan tarot card readers out there. There's charlatan practitioners of every type and measure. And the one thing they're counting on is your miseducation. The one thing they're counting on is your lack of exposure. The one thing they're counting on is your unwilling to study, or your lack of time to study, or your lack of resources in terms of the study and the exposure to the practice. Like any good con artist, They're seeking the week opening, if you will. And so our National New Orleans Voodoo Days is not only a bridge to bring Haiti and Haitian uh, demonstration together with Benin, Togo, West Africa footprint and demonstration, with Dominican Republic um, footprint and demonstration, with North American, Louisiana, Mississippi Delta Voodoo, Haitian Voodoo practice and demonstration with our Brazilian brothers and sisters and cousins, but to honor and acknowledge Voodoo worldwide, Pan African spirituality, religion, and tradition worldwide, and to create bridges locally, regionally, individually, personally, globally, that allow for our continued support and survival wherever we are. One thing churches often have and have had are the communities that they operate in, the diaspora of other organizations and bodies of organizations that keep those communities, whether they're Kojic, Baptist, Methodist, Episcopalian, Catholic, and they're unified that keep them alive. Because of the destruction of colonization and white supremacy as it relates to world religion and practice, that has not often been the case where we find Aboriginal and traditional uh, uh, indigenous practices, which tend to be much more localized, self-supporting from within. And so now, as we live in a day afforded a space for us to have easier access to one another, so too must be access to the information, the education, the knowledge. So we support you in supporting us in our annual National New Orleans Voodoo Day. We invite you to visit our website at voodooday.org, VODOUDAY.org, to become a sponsor, to become a supporter, to send a donation or an offering, to get more information about preparing for your visit. And certainly, as Kim Ford suggested on last night, contact us. If you know, where do I stay? What hotels are still left to occupy? This has been a hot season for hotels. With the Super Bowl, with Carnival, leading up to Mardi Gras Day. Certainly, with our event, um, we're just opening up the season of events, uh, monthly events that we have here in New Orleans. There's a festival, and I really shouldn't say monthly, it might be every weekend there's a different major event going on, literally now until, the heat of the summer. So we invite you to plan ahead, do your research, do your homework, contact me, contact Sister Toni, and ask us for our assistance in helping you to attend our second annual National New Orleans Voodoo Day, and come out and shake the hand, hug the neck, meet our family from Benin, Togo, Paris, Haiti, the Caribbean, and certainly all locations of the U.S. Come out and join us. And certainly, if you seek consultation, service, support, love, you can always reach me 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, virtually 365 days a year at www.houseofthedivineprince.com. And I seek to meet you here and join you again tomorrow night at 9 p.m. U.S. Central Standard Time, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 6 p.m. Mountain, 7 p.m. Central. I invite your active contribution and participation. This is a Voodoo worldwide platform. This is a Pan-African spirituality and religion platform. This is an ATR, Aboriginal African-based traditional religious systems platform. So I invite voices from all corners, all communities, all ethnic groups within our circle. I invite, the witches, the psychics, the readers to come in and share your experience, share your information, and let's love together. Let's grow together. Let's earn together. Let's be community and family support together. We're going to need to love and come together in this season like never before. Certainly like Bois came on. Certainly like the 50s, the 1960s, and 1970s. We've got to come together at a grassroots community organizing, community activism, suggested activity level as it relates to our practice and our tradition, as it relates to our power. And so as we give power to ourselves, we give power to each other, we give power to the ancestors, we give power and acknowledgement to those who came before as they support us in our endeavors, as they support us in moving forward, as they support us in life, as they support us in tradition, as they support us in not just survival, but in our thrival and thriving moving forward. I look forward to meeting you again in this shared, safe, sacred space tomorrow night, 9 p.m. U.S. Central Standard Time, for another edition of Revolutionary Hoodoo, New Orleans Voodoo Secrets and Recipes, powered by NONVD, New Orleans National Voodoo Day. Thank you so much, Sister Toni Val Martinez, for joining me. Thank you, Daniel Neal. Thank you so much, Elder Reggie, for being present with us and live in the chat and helping to be a monitor for me in the chat room. Thank you for those people who are watching live as we stream. I don't see your name or your username, but I know you're there. I can see your numbers. StreamYard and YouTube is telling me how many people are watching. And I appreciate those of you who are listening and re-listening and sharing the link uh, as these shows are automatically archived with each broadcast. So please, I invite you to like, share, subscribe, follow, support me here on these various social network channels in the space near you, and certainly support us at New Orleans National Voodoo Day, www.vodouday.org. I am again trying to schedule our family from West Africa. I have 2 or 3 people that I've been preparing to come on and join us, and a representative from Haiti who will be joining us in coming days. And so we look forward to seeing you again tomorrow night. All is a blessing, remembering that all is a blessing. All is a blessing if you can just see beyond the veils, for it is all just an illusion and a test, and one of the greatest divine mysteries of this life cycle. No matter what you do, no matter the challenge, no matter what you face, respect the voodoo. No matter what you do, respect the voodoo. Asé, Asé O, and Asé.